We're prepared to move ahead with those, but in order to do that, we need you to pass a resolution that is going to allow your administration to move ahead and settle final terms with the lender. The lender is then going to fund the transaction. He's going to put those funds into an escrow account, and we'll have the ability to draw down on that escrow account as the project is implemented. The only way I can get to that money, as in the previous 3 phases of the performance contract that we did with you, I need her signature, I need his signature, and I probably need somebody else's signature from the district to get to that money. So it's not like I can leave an incomplete project behind. I have to have your approval to draw out of that escrow. At the completion of the project, you will then begin to make repayment on the project, and you'll make that repayment back to the bank. If in any year you don't have sufficient savings to make that payment back to the bank for the performance contract, Midstate has to make you whole. And that's a requirement of the legislation. So how do I get to the next slide?
Sorry, just take this.
We have a strong history together in these types of projects. Over our 3 phases, we've been able to generate annual savings of about $2.4 million over a baseline from 2010. So if you were to go back in time to 2010 and look at what you were spending in kilowatts, you would have seen a reduction of 18 million kilowatts a year over the period of those 3 projects that have happened. So that's a significant reduction given the factors of what's going on inside the school district. So in every year, as part of our performance contract, phases 1, 2, and 3, we're documenting that savings. And by the way, Ms. Beauvais is able to see that online. She tracks it. You are extremely lucky to have somebody of her caliber looking at your energy bill all the time. It's like a watchdog there, and she is very, very good at doing that. And she makes sure that we're hitting those saving targets on an annual basis. Go to the next slide, so quickly. So quickly, who has done this elsewhere in Arizona? We're on our 24th project in Arizona, all with K through 12 school districts. Some of those are listed. That includes Tucson. That includes Nogales, Douglas, Glendale Union, Glendale, Washington. The list is there. So you're not breaking new ground here, but what you are doing is doing business in a different way, and that's to be applauded. You're basically moving into unlocking the savings from your utility budget, and you're doing it in such a way as you're not having to ask the voters for any more money to be able to do this type of project. Go to the slide. Very quickly on our scope, there, as Mr. Encina spoke to, we have a water portion of the project. The water portion of the project is broken into 3 or 4 areas. It includes irrigation, cooling towers, and domestic water. Lighting, interior and some exterior. We're basically installing state-of-the-art LEDs. We're also, with lighting and water, picking up some great rebates. The water authority down here has about $61,000 worth of rebates that we're going to be able to pick up. And then the local power company has some really great rebates that we're going to be able to pick up as well to be able to use to fund the project. We're also going to provide some modernization of the portables. Well, why would you do the portables? And hence, in turn, the name says they're portable, but they're really not. As Cindy's inventory and Ms. Beauvais' inventory expressed, many of them have been here, I think some from the 80s.
Yeah, we have one from 1960 that's
Still in use. So we've been able to keep many of these air conditioning units together, but it's reached a point in their useful life where they need to go, and their efficiency can be drastically improved upon, combined with some rebates, making it an attractive payback. But what we're really utilizing those 3 ECMs for is, Cindy spoke, to provide a funding source so that we can go out and renovate the restrooms across the campuses. There's approximately 422 bathrooms across the portfolio of buildings. It's a lot of restrooms to renovate. And what we're going to utilize as our standard, if you will, a couple slides in. A couple more, Cindy. There's a picture with Tom.
In the bathroom.
So Mr. Hubbard, when he was here, asked us to look at the Gallego restroom as, if you will, the new standard for the district. It's got new partitions, the ADA access on the stalls, and it has floor-to-ceiling tiles in much of the facility. It's really done very, very well. And while we're indifferent on the color, we'll work through that on an individual school-by-school basis on the colors. This is the standard that we're trying to incorporate to bring all of the facilities up to this level of quality in the facilities.
And ADA compliant.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Stone?
While we're talking about the restrooms, and also I was gonna ask, when we were still at the slide of the water scope, and the domestic water, the new valve systems and things like that, it's been quite a bit in the news lately about the pipes and the lead and all that in the water systems. How are these renovations going to address those issues?
At this point in time, if we were to encounter any sort of hazardous material, we would have to make a step to abate that through other sorts of funds within the state. We are going to clean and make sure that all of the toilets are, because we're using potable water, of course, as part of the sewer system, but most of the water in the sewer system obviously is not meant to be served out of a functional.
Right.
So we're basically going to test and make sure that the lines are all clean. And then if we do encounter any environmental hazard, we'll have to bring that to your attention and it'll have to be addressed at that point.
But
in
it
time.
will be checked?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about the restrooms. With some of the current things that are going on about privacy in restrooms and whatnot, what are we doing to ensure more privacy for our students in the restrooms? Or are we addressing that?
We're trying to bring the restrooms to the standard that was listed for us at Gallego, which essentially is to provide in the ladies' restroom at least 2 handicap accessible stalls, and in the men's restroom at least 1 handicap accessible stall in each of the restroom. Which, and it's just quite a bit of undertaking. If you thought and think about it, we're gonna have to cut out all that concrete, we're gonna have to redo the partitions, repolish the floors, put all that back. So I'm not trying to emphasize the amount of work that's involved, but that was the scope that we were directed to by the district, if you will, sir. And we, based on our conversation with the district, we feel like that provides a level of adequacy at a level that is not currently available in there. So it's definitely an upgrade. If you would like additional privacy, then we should probably work through the administration to clarify a policy.
Ms. Stone?
I think I know what he's talking about when Mr. Hubbard was doing all that with you, which was extremely necessary. I mean, I understand where he was coming from. But now we went to the law conference recently, the 3 of us, and there's so much more litigation and things that are going on as far as the LBGT,
Yes, ma'am.
and I'm not sure, that is probably something that we as a board first need to talk about also. And, but have that in mind, that we'll probably have to have a study session on what we will be doing as a district.
And to ensure more privacy for the students so that...
Yes, to address those issues. And we'll hopefully, at the end of the meeting, we have a chance to put on new agenda items. And because of this, we don't want to delay anything. I'm probably going to ask that we have that conversation at the next board meeting, so that way, we can talk about it too, and whatever we come up with, let you know about it. And I think what you're doing here is great as far as, the Gallegos bathrooms. Yes, we need a big upgrade, because you probably had a chance to see some of the
I
restrooms.
think I've been in all 400.
Yes. And you see that they're very much in need of this type of renovation. But, I think that we also need to have that discussion because of what's going on around the country.
Yes, ma'am.
Might hit us here in Tucson and Arizona and Sunnyside. And it might not change anything that you're doing. However, I think we should have this discussion, and then the sooner we have it, the better for you.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'll probably be asking for that agenda item at the end of the,
I think that'd be appropriate.
Yeah, also, just to let you know, I did already ask for materials from Ms. Fidela. She provided them for us on the restrooms for the LGBT, I can't say.
Transgender?
Yeah.
First-
So-
Yeah.
actually,
So-
to be more detailed,
Yeah, yeah,
transgender.
so we've already reviewed the materials, and it's really not outrageous from what we're doing, as far as tremendous amount of changes. And we are addressing the privacy issue with the stalls, and it's kind of like what Tom was working on as well. So it's not like we didn't take a look at it, we didn't review the materials, we still have them. So it's not that embedded in this by any wording at all, but it is something that we.
Well, that's good to
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
That's good to know that
And-
that has been
and-
taken into account.
We just want to be very proactive on this.
Yeah.
and be ahead of the game. Mr. Holmes?
Just, excuse me, Mr. Crowd, just to belabor it a little bit, we had the discussion, at least with Mid-State, and there are some administrative practices that we need to continue to enforce and put in place and clarify, but the scope of the project does allow the flexibility that's going to be needed to accommodate new policies, definitely.
Thank you. That's what, so we're on the same page. Yeah, the intent of the program was to not to take away any options or flexibility for you, because we knew that this was going to be an issue. From a policy standpoint, you'll have to decide how you want to administer it. Our job was to make it accessible, okay?
Thank you.
And so moving on into the program funding equation, I know that this is a bit of an eye chart. If you wouldn't mind the cash flow, Cindy, I think that's an easier statement. I'm sorry, go back one.
Nice.
Yes.
It's right here.
Thank you.
It's only because we've been jumping slides.
Yeah, great. So what you see in this program economics is you see the total project cost at 13.6. We're asking, in order to make a compliant transaction with a 15-year term, we need about $3 million down, leaving us with a financed amount of $10 million. We've worked diligently with lenders. Mr. Encina's beat them up severely and continues to do that to this day. And so with his efforts, we've been able to secure you a very competitive interest rate. The interest rate that we have pictured on the slide at this point in time is still moving just a little bit. So we're not going to be able to lock down the final interest rate until Mr. Encinas meets with the lender and they can come to final terms. Thus, the request from you tonight to allow him the latitude to be able to do that. We're going to finance this project over 15 years. The nice thing about this project is I've been doing work in Arizona now for 4 years, and I've not seen a project be able to get this level of rebates. You're going to get $902,000 back in rebates on this project. That's money that comes from the utilities. So it's important that we get on this. We've seen these utility funds throughout the state be there for a while and then go away. We don't want to lose that. So we're trying to quickly move to be able to capture that for you. At the end of the day, you're going to get an energy savings from this project of $696,000 per year. If that $696,000 does not materialize, it'll be Mid-State's obligation to make you whole between the delta and that $696,000. Thus, you're able to make your ongoing obligation to the bank to where that you're whole in every year, and you're not having to come out of pocket in any year of the performance contract.
I have a quick question about that. If we have a reduction in ADM in our student count, and hopefully we won't, but if we did and we had, say, close the school down, how does that figure into the calculation?
Yeah, we would have to take a look at that school and determine what the energy savings for that particular school was from a water and energy savings standpoint. Obviously, if you're not occupying, nothing saves more than off.
Right?
So if it's off, you're obviously going to save more than enough to make the compensation due to the bank.
Well, we won't have the income, though, based off the ADM to,
But you're utilizing your utility budgets, not necessarily student headcount to be able to do that from. Right?
Yeah. Right, I mean, the budget still is.
Still gonna be funded.
Still be funded,
Yeah.
whether we have, 18,000 kids or 15,000 kids, the budget will be driven by the ADM. The expenditure, in essence, will be impacted by the occupancy, yes, but if you have one less school to operate, you'd save some money.
You'd have more than enough money because the school's off. Or basically mothballed. You're not having any utility expense.
all right.
Okay. So at the end of the day, what I'm asking you to move ahead with is a transaction that will allow you to make these restroom renovations, modernize the lighting, reduce your water consumption by over 1 million gallons a year. Think about what that means in Arizona. That's stewardship at an environmental level. I'm asking you to empower your leadership to be able to sign contracts with Midstate and a lender of your choice so that we can move ahead with this project.
Ms. Dung and Mr. Holmes?
If we were to move ahead with this project, this proposal, what timeline do you foresee as far as the bathroom renovations?
The bathroom renovations, we're really looking at next summer as our main thrust. The entire project is scheduled over 17 months, is what we anticipate. We've lost a little bit of time here. Originally, we thought we could get it shorter, but now that we've lost the one summer, we're definitely gonna have to hit it next summer. The restrooms will be the slowest to get started because we're gonna be working in occupied buildings, so we have to plan our work very, very carefully. But we feel like with the help of the administration, the help of the principals, we should be able to work inside of some of the restrooms during occupied hours, only with their approval, so that we can keep the project moving. But if we have to wait and we can't get into certain schools, then it's definitely going to be toward the end of that 17-month period before all the restrooms will be finished. It's back-end loaded is the best way to say the schedule to you. Okay.
I still had a few more questions, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
When I was looking at the webinar and I was taking a look at the maintenance agreement, just wanted to clarify everything with the
Okay.
maintenance agreement. So when something breaks down, all these things that we're purchasing that are the larger, not the light bulb stuff, but the larger things,
Yes, ma'am.
it belongs to you until the end of the 15-year contract.
Let me clarify that for you,
Okay.
okay? With the project, there are warranties, and that's what I believe you're speaking to for the moment. For example, the light bulbs and the ballast, the LED drivers and the LED lamps, I have to change my vocabulary. Those come with a 10-year warranty from the manufacturer. So for the next 10 years, you're not going to be changing bulbs and ballasts as they fail across the district. That will be the responsibility of Midstate to coordinate. We already have a service agreement in place for the HVAC. As far as like the new components of the portables, the new HVAC we'll be putting in for the portables, that's going to come with a 2-year warranty on it from both materials and workmanship. Okay, so for that 2-year period, there will not be any associated repairs with those particular items. Same thing is true of the water components; they have a 2-year warranty as well.
So on year 4, explain to me what happens.
If in year 4 you have a HVAC component fail that we installed, you're going to have to go back to your service provider, either us or another vendor of your choice, to have that unit repaired, okay? But I'm not taking any of the operational savings that's being generated by the program. So if you have those repairs today on those portable units, which you do, I'm not taking credit for any of that money, so you'll still have sufficient funds to make that repair, okay? Under state law, I'm not allowed to take operational savings into account, only energy savings, for specifically that reason, ma'am, so that you still have funds available to make those repairs. Okay. The other portables units have lasted 15 years. I'm pretty positive that with this type of efficiency and this quality of the unit, you're going to see a very long life cycle with the unit.
But you're correct in terms of this is a lease purchase for a 15-year period. So if we were not to make an annual payment, that repossess the urinals, yeah. So legally, we're leasing for a 14-year period with year 15 the actual purchase price. So
That's what I thought I read.
Mr. Holmes?
I just want to clarify, changing the scope of the work within the period of time by which we're actually going to be installing the restrooms. It gets to Mr. Crouch's question, and I'll ask it a different way. So within this, 12 to 15-month period by which we're renovating all the restrooms over time, if we have some changes in enrollment that requires us to actually look at maybe closing a building and not performing the renovations of that building during that period of time, we can change the scope of the work, thus changing the amount of the loan that's actually taken out. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. If you recall, that's a capital part of the project. It doesn't have any savings associated with the restroom renovation, so you have a great deal of flexibility with that part of the project. So to Superintendent Holmes' point, if in the next few months, as we are getting our work planned and launched, you decide you want to close the school, even though you've borrowed the money to do it, you don't have to do that portion. You can simply give that funds back to the lender.
We just won't draw it. I mean, just,
Yes,
yeah.
just withdraw that down.
Mr. Grant, just so I can elaborate a little bit more, just 'cause referring to scope as well, and by the same token, if we make different choices in different schools in terms of the actual types of restroom renovations, that also is flexible.
Very flexible.
So if we want to go a standard for elementary, a standard for middle, a standard for high school, there's still flexibility in this drawdown and this project scope.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Completely flexible there.
Thank you. I don't anticipate us going in that situation. I just like to look at all possibilities.
Your foresight served you well, so.
I did have a question about the cost of the project. I believe your statement at the beginning was that we would actually have a net positive based off the project?
Yes, sir.
Does that include that $3 million investment that we put in?
Yeah, if you go to, I believe the last, or the slide that's up there, slide 21. Yeah. This one is the project pro forma, it kind of sums it up. Can you go back to it? From my
We went down.
the project pro forma. You guys-
Page 20?
After that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at that one, sir. Thank you. You see on the bottom right is the net positive cash flow that's generated over the 15-year term of the project. Okay? So that doesn't, you're basically looking at that off of the finance $10 million, okay?
Right.
So that does not. So basically, you're getting 2.4 back over the term of the project, but you're still putting down the $3 million.
Okay.
So-
So in reality, it's cost, over the 15-year period, it's costing us $600,000. Is that,
That's the best way to look at it. So for $600,000, you're getting $13 million worth of renovation done because of the energy savings that the project is generating, which is exactly what the legislature was looking to do when they enabled the performance contract statute.
Mr. Holmes?
Just for further clarification for those that are watching and just if there's confusion on this particular slide, just back to that, I went back. If you can go back to the slide, please. And the annual net savings in terms of the performance contract, I know there's a 696 that's stated in upfront in the slide before and then on the future costs. Here we're seeing an energy savings that exceeds the 696 over time.
Yes,
Is the performance contract guaranteeing that savings over time, or just the 696?
we use the 696 as a baseline, and we're only guaranteeing the 696. The rest of that is an inflationary factor that we don't control, nobody controls. We're only holding ourselves to the 696 per year. Okay? What's going to happen, though, in the next few days, Mr. Encinas is going to meet with the lender, and they're going to shape that savings stream to match everything, so that in any one year, you're not going to be upside down. By state law, I can't have you upside down in any one year, okay?
So go through it every year for the annual savings that we have, the lender will match the payment to the annual savings, so you never have a negative year. So in essence, every single year maybe has a little bit different interest to it, but it's a fixed rate over time and it's low.
And so I'm going to work up from the 696 every year to make you whole.
Okay, can I clarify that statement, just ask it one more time, just to make sure it's very clear for us making these decisions, and so in other words, are you, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but can you restate the savings versus the payment every year, so that we're clear what we're paying every year should be realized in savings, is that correct?
Yes, I'm guaranteeing you back sufficient savings to make you whole over the life of the term of the agreement, okay?
Okay,
So-
The easiest, yes.
That-
Every year is sculpted so that your payment doesn't exceed your savings, so it's matched up. So it's done that way by statute. Every single year has to be at worst
Neutral.
balanced, neutral.
Okay, so again, only because you weren't at the mic, I'm going to make sure it's clarified. So in other words, there won't be any out-of-pocket expenses to make the payment. And if the annual savings isn't realized, then the payment comes from the company back to us so that we can make that annual payment.
You can't be upside down.
We can never be upside down. Okay, so this particular schedule is just a example, it's not what we're holding to for purposes of public.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Ms. Quintero?
So, if we plant more trees around our buildings to help shade our buildings, it would help us with more energy savings,
It would
correct?
Definitely. But you can't water them.
Well, no. Okay, so then we need. Okay, rainwater harvesting. Can we put those in there? Thank you.
Any other, no, Mr. Holmes?
I just want to make a statement, Mr. Croucher, in relationship to the whole scope of this project. I think what I want to make clear is as we're looking at budget cuts last year and repurposing Ms. Beauvais' position, one of the reasons why we repurposed her role specifically was to assign her the task of finding ways to save on energy and water and all the utilities of overhead that continue to plague a district that's like ours. What she's proposed, I think she's risen to the challenge of bringing back a proposal that's requires us to rethink how we've thought about energy savings in a way that actually is, has the potential of giving us life back into our buildings, at the same time realize some true savings. The reality is the savings are going to actually pay for the project that will enhance our buildings, but bottom line is we are saving water and we're saving energy, which with Cindy in that role, I have a lot of confidence in her ability to keep us honest and keep others honest and making sure that we're realizing that savings. So, I do have to pay tribute to Cindy's work in this because she's really stayed on top of us and presented us with quite a lot of information to soak in over the last couple of months, and I think enough to make some decisions tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion?
I move that we close the study session.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Study session is closed. We'll reconvene at our regular meeting, or we'll start our regular meeting at 6:30.